I was trying to process having an empty nest. And when Keith and I married, we had been told that I was going to need surgery, and I had no reason to think otherwise because it had taken my mother 9 years to conceive, and I had some of her same physical problems. And so we, of course, believed them. There was no other real option. So we just went on into marriage thinking that it would probably be years in surgery and then we'd start a family. Well, 9 months and 2 weeks after the day we married, we gave birth to our first child. And so an empty nest was a shock because we had almost had no other kind of home. We knew so quickly all I knew, I was so sick, and I told my mother, I said, marriage has made me ill. She said, well, what are your symptoms? And I said, well, every day, I said, it's like I don't even want to get out of the bed. I said, I'm so tired. And I said, I've been throwing up. And she said, when have you been throwing up? And I said, I just do it every single day. I mean, I just try to greet the day and I'm already throwing up. And she finally is going like, wait a second, you're not sick, you're expecting. And she was exactly right. And so from the earliest days, from the first couple of months, we were already making room in our minds that we were more than two. And so when they launched, it was a shock, and it always is. But what the name comes from, Feathers from My Nest, it was that my birds had flown, but everywhere you look, there were feathers left, just things that reminded me of him and things that would capture a moment in our home or a season in time. And it would just be simple things. Like one of them was finding a crumpled up Kleenex under the edge of my oldest daughter's bed. And I knew that it meant she had cried in the night and that it would have been something that I may not have even known about. What was her heart broken about? That she would have cried and she would have stuck that Kleenex under the bed. I knew that the only reason she would have hidden it was because she was hiding what her heart was broken about. Otherwise, if she'd had a cold, it would be right there on the bedside table. Things like that they left behind that reminded me of all these seasons of motherhood.
Did you write down, I know you keep a journal every day. Did you back then too?
Oh,
keep
absolutely.
A journal of everything?
Absolutely. I was truly a writer of sorts. Even in childhood, I would scribble across Big Chief tablets, even when I had no idea what I was writing. I mean, I would think in my mind I knew what I was writing, but I was just scratching like my idea of cursive. And so I've always journaled and written things down. And even at that point, what became the book was that I would jot down something that I had seen that reminded me of them, like a stack of binders in the closet of one of my daughter's rooms and all of those kinds of things. And I just began to write down all of these feathers that they left behind and then to process it. I just think the way that I get through something is I do it in words.
Yeah.
And some people do it in images and that kind of thing, in imagination. I do it by writing it out in words.
Yeah. Well, if you ever text Beth, she never uses emoji because we tease her that she is the living emoji.
I'm a living emoji.
Right?
Emoji would be overkill for me. It just would be too much. So no, I never use one because I am one.
She does.
Yes.
But I'm the emoji person because I don't have the words so we're kind of complete opposites in our way of communicating. And I love that about you.
You know what I love? I love that this book, the name of it, Feathers from My Nest, because when you were raising those children, you never thought about what they were going to leave behind when they went to college.
Absolutely.
When they grew up and when they launched out on their own. Now, you said earlier you wanted your children always, you raised them to be strong women.
Yes.
You raised them to go out of the nest.
Yes.
But when you were raising them, you never really thought about the reality of when they left the nest.
No.
And that's really what this book is about.
Absolutely.
It's about the reality of, I've raised my children, now they've left the nest.
Exactly. And it seemed to go on, and it seemed like some of the days of difficulty would never end. And then suddenly, it really has come, not to an end as far as that you're still their parent, but an era has definitely ended, and it comes with a reckoning, because you just think back on all of it, and I mean reckoning in a good way. I'm just saying that there's no way not to have a wrenching of heart. And I did, Victoria, what you're saying, I did raise mine to launch. I mean, to me, that really, isn't that our goal? That we're going to hopefully send these young adults out into the world equipped for what they're going to run into, what their challenges will be, that they've had a lot of opportunities to make mistakes in a safe place, to learn a lot of hard lessons and hopefully a lot of fun lessons, and that we want them to launch. But then when they do, I mean, it is an absence like no other absence, because the volume just drops. I mean, from 10 down to about 2. And I remember, Victoria, when the second one, when my youngest one went to college, literally that one, I came back in the car with my husband. My husband drove. My oldest daughter was, she did not have to go back to class for a couple of days. She was at A&M. Melissa was at Baylor at that time. And I literally, after I said bye to Melissa comes over to me. I was thinking of the third reason why I needed to run to Walmart. And I said, I'm going to be right back. And she comes over to me, she gets me by the shoulders, and she said, Mother, you've done everything. It's done. Oh. And she said, you are going to have to go get in that car. And I couldn't speak. I turned, I hugged her, because I knew she was right. I turned around. I did not even wait on my husband or my oldest daughter. I mean, I started trying to get to the car as fast as I could. I literally curled up in the backseat. I'm so embarrassed to admit to this. But that last one going, I curled up in the back seat. I cried for 30 minutes, and then I sat straight up and said, have we come to that Mexican food restaurant yet? And, you know, because I had to douse it in salsa. The only way I could deal right then is that I had to drink salsa in order to get through it, and I had to drink it on the edge of a tortilla chip. So it was huge. And when regular living, so I would go to work in the morning. I'd had my time with God in the morning, my what we would call a devotional time or a quiet time. I don't like to call it a quiet time because it's not very quiet at my house, because I can get raucous with God. You know, I can just like get into the scriptures and read them aloud. But I would come in from work in the afternoon, and it would be before Keith got home. And I would just have to go back to my table again and have another one, because I did not know what to do with myself. I do now. You know, a friend was asking me a few minutes before we started the program, but weren't you glad? Yes, of course, there are 100 things that you're happy about. Just that you're not washing someone's clothes all the time. That you're not making up their bed when you'd really hope that maybe one time in their life they actually would make it themselves. You know, all of these things, but still, it was like you don't know what to do with yourself.
Yeah.
Or at least I didn't.